Lesson 2 of Chapter 1 of Probability and Statistics. Today's topic is population and sample. Our essential outcome is that you'll be able to identify the population and sample being studied. Today's lesson, we're going to start off with a quick review from our lesson yesterday. And so if you remember yesterday, we talked about data, we talked about statistics, and so on this next slide, we talked about variables yesterday as well. We talked about quantitative and categorical variables and the difference between them. So on the bottom of the page right now, I have 8 different variables that you guys can see. See the arrows pointing to them right now. What I would like you to do right now is on your paper, make a quick T-chart of quantitative and categorical, and I'd like you to sort these different variables into quantitative or categorical. So pause the video right now and take the time to sort these variables into their different categories. If you need to go look back at your notes from yesterday, go look back at your notes to refresh what quantitative and categorical mean. And then maybe look at some of the examples from our lesson yesterday to see if you can determine those things. So if you look, I sorted those first 8 things. Check yours with mine. See if ours agree. There's 8 new different categories that just popped up. I'd like you now to pause the video and sort these next 8. And if you look now, I have all 8 of them sorted, checked them all, made sure I did it right. Hopefully you got, there's 16 different variables you had to sort here. Hopefully you got at least 10 of these right into the correct thing. If you didn't, you might want to go back and rewatch the video from lesson 1, day 1, and rethink what quantitative and categorical variables are. So here we have another example of quantitative and categorical variables and all that. It's another review from yesterday. It's all about hotel choices. A high school debate team is planning to go to Salt Lake City for a 3-day competition. Team members will be responsible for sharing the cost of staying in a hotel for 2 nights. The competition sponsor provides a list of available hotels along with some information about each hotel. Here's a chart that summarizes the hotel options. Let's take a look at the chart. We've got our hotels, Comfort Inn, Fairfield, etc. Whether they have a pool, if they have an exercise room, internet. You know, at one point in time you did have to pay for internet when you stay in a hotel. Some hotels, I think you still do. Restaurants, how far it is from the hotel to the competition, is there room service, and how much does it cost per day? So all these different things, there's some different variables and there's individuals in there. So what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and try to identify these 3 questions down below. These 3 questions right here, what individuals does this data set describe? So what are the individuals in the situation? Then clearly identify each of the variables. Is it quantitative? Is it categorical? And then, you know, I want to know if you were a debate team member, which hotel would you recommend and why? Now, for the last one, there's not really a correct answer, but might be some better hotels to stay at, and I would like to see what you guys think. So pause the video now and answer questions A, B, C in your notes packet. So if you look at my video now, I've identified the individuals. The individuals in this situation are the different hotels over here. And then the variables. The variables are all these different factors of the hotel room, all these different things that are different for each hotel. Then I went through and identified, okay, categorical, that's pool, the exercise room, the restaurants, the room service. And quantitative, that's the cost of internet per day, the distance to the competition, and the room rate per day. If I were staying at this hotel, one of these hotels for a debate competition, I would probably choose to stay at the Fairfield Inn and Suites. Got an indoor pool, pretty nice, exercise room, internet. You don't have to pay anything. There's a restaurant option. It's a little bit farther, but it's also a little bit cheaper. So, you know, different things to think about. You might have a different answer than I do on that, and that's okay. So now we're ready to move into today's topic, sample versus population. And so, sampling. You go to the grocery store and you walk in and there's all these different samples if you go on the right day, and you can try on, like in this picture here, okay, they want you to sample the different bread options so that you know which one to buy. Here it looks like you're sampling some type of drink, and this guy down here is sampling a strawberry or something from the store. And so, why do you think that when you go into a store and you're getting a sample, it's just a little piece? How does that help you decide whether or not you want to buy the whole loaf? Does just eating, do you need to eat the entire loaf of bread, like one of these loaves of bread over here, to know if the bread's going to be good, or are one of these samples enough? Think about that. Answer that question in your notes. I would say that no, you don't need to sample the entire loaf of bread to know if it's a good loaf of bread. That's why they give you samples. It gives you an idea, a little idea of, okay, is this something I'd want, or is this not something I would want? And so we even do that when we're collecting data. Rather than collect data from every single person in the United States, hundreds of millions of people, they'll randomly survey maybe 2,000 people and call that a sample of the population. And, it's not 100% accurate because it's not everybody. But you can find a lot of trends in sampling. And so if we think about that, if we give that with a diagram, here I have this diagram of two circles. It's like a Venn diagram. And my blue circle here, that's the population. If you think about the U.S., that's the entire country. And then when we do surveys, like this, different surveys to collect information, a lot of times, rather than surveying everybody, you do a little sample. Okay, and so a population, that's the entire group of individuals. It's the whole loaf of bread or the whole box of cereal. Whereas a sample, it's part of the population which actual data is collected on, and it's used to draw conclusions about the whole. So we can, rather than, like I said, survey everybody and find out data about everyone, you can find data about a small group, a sample, and use that to make inferences and conclusions about the whole population. So as we sample, we have to keep a few things in mind, such as resampling. We want to know, if I took a new sample, would my sample be the same? And that's an important question to ask yourself. And, the answer to that is, it's not going to be exactly the same, but you want it to be similar to what your other data set, your other sample did. So you expect it to be similar, and if it's not, then there's something wrong with your sampling. If the data is totally different, then you didn't pick a good sample. And so if we think about that in the United States Census, the census happens every 10 years, last happened in 2010, and they survey every single one in the United States. The whole population is sampled. And so there are advantages and disadvantages to that. One advantage is it's extremely accurate data. Every single person, every adult, every child, information is gathered on all of it. It's this huge process. And so they get all this data, and it's really accurate. But if you think about that, well, that's a lot of time. It's a lot of manpower. It's a lot of dedication from their employees to do all of that. People go door to door to get all this information, which means that it's also a lot of money because you have to pay for all those people to collect the data. Then you have to pay for the people to sort through the data and categorize it and make inferences about it. And if you think about it, you don't really need to know stuff about all these different people. Like, sometimes it's too much. It's not necessary for all these different things. And so that's an example where, okay, so this is good to do. It's a good thing to do every 10 years, but it's not something we do every year. It's once every 10 years for a reason. So what I would like you guys to do now is turn to pages 7 through 8 in your textbook. Read through examples 1.4 and 1.7. Example 1.4 is on page 7, and the other 3 are on the next page. And what I would like you to do is make these population and sample circles about these different examples. So take your population, put that in the big blue circle, and think about, okay, what is the sample in this example? And put the sample in your little red circle. So go through, for examples 1.4 and 1.7, and identify these. You can pause the video here because I'm going to show you what I think on the next slide. Alright, sorry, this is a long video today. Here's what I would say. For example, 1-4, the public opinion poll. Our population in this one is the U.S. residents, 18 and older, and our sample, it's the telephone interviews that were done, just a couple thousand. For example, 1-6, the population is the more than 110 million U.S. households, and the sample is the 50,000 households that were actually interviewed. For example, 1-6 for our TV ratings, well, population is all the people that have television, and the sample is, well, the people with a meter. And for the last one, 1-7, for the General Social Survey, our population is all the adults living in U.S. households, and then our sample size is really the only people who were interviewed in person. Sorry about that, my battery's running out. We'll have to hurry up this video. So what I'd like you to do now is, in your notes, pick something you'd like to know more about. Any type of situation you want, and then write it down. And what I would like you to do is, for that, figure out what the population is. What would the sample be? And then, in that survey, what are the variables? And even think about, are they categorical or quantitative? And so take the time to spend about a minute or two doing that. Pause the video. Alright, so what I'd like you to do is to just summarize what you learned today in your notes. Any questions you still have? Remember, our goal for today was that you would be able to identify the population and sample being studied in data and statistics. And so what I would say, the summary for today, in my words, would be that a population is the entire group of individuals, whereas a sample is just a smaller portion of a population on which we have data. If we sample again, our results should be similar, but they might vary. A census is when the sample is the entire population, but these are expensive, they take time, and are not practical in most cases. This is the end of day 2 of chapter 1 in probability and statistics. Day 3 is the next video you should be watching.